Boa tarde, pessoal.
Boa tarde, Fernando.
Tudo bom? Só mais alguns minutinhos. Obrigada por terem esperado. Tá bem bacana hoje. Muito bom ver, além dos nossos queridos Opportunity Funds applicants aqui, né? O pessoal do Opportunity Funds Ponto de Talentos. Também estou vendo várias pessoas que têm comparecido com frequência, os nossos regulars. Fico muito feliz. Também advisees individuais que estão aqui. Muito bacana mesmo ver todos vocês e tão pontuais. Leslie, you tell me when it's okay for me to do the presentation and then we carry on. Can I do it? Okay. So, então agora eu vou fazer as apresentações oficialmente. Boa tarde, pessoal. Sejam todos bem-vindos a mais um webinar do EducationUSA, a fonte oficial de informações sobre ensino superior nos Estados Unidos. O meu nome é Fernanda, eu sou advisor do EducationUSA da PUC Rio e também coordenadora do programa Opportunity Graduate Ponte de Talentos. E hoje nós temos o prazer de ter aqui conosco a Graduate School of Education da University of Pennsylvania e para apresentar algumas informações super importantes e relevantes a respeito tanto da escola de educação quanto do processo de admissão. Nós temos aqui hoje Leslie Levin, que é diretora de admissões e de Financial Aid da Graduate School of Education. Eu espero que vocês tenham uma ótima sessão. Não fiquem acanhados, eu vou ficar de olho no chat, então a qualquer momento, se alguém tiver uma dúvida e não se sentir à vontade para falar inglês, se não tiver entendido alguma coisa que a Leslie falou, por favor, escreva no chat, eu vou ficar de olho e aí eu ajudo vocês, tá bom? Leslie, have a great session, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Fernanda. And I want to say a big hola to everybody here and welcome. And I'm thrilled to see such a nice group of students. I am going to give a presentation, so I'm going to share my screen and hope that I can just get a signal that everybody can see in just a moment. So if you can give me perhaps a thumbs up sign.
It's not full screen. Now it's full screen. Yeah, perfectly.
All right. Well, wonderful. Before I go ahead and do the presentation, let me again say a big thank you to Fernanda, to the Education USA Center in Rio, for allowing us this opportunity. I want to share with you some thoughts, again, prior to this presentation that I just said to Fernanda, which is that your voice and your presence at our Graduate School of Education is so fundamental and critical to the field of education. Education is really, I think, the fundamental sounding board for and really the springboard for all success, future success. And education is certainly not something that occurs in a vacuum. It is important to have all voices throughout the world be contributing to this critical field of study. So we just want to emphasize to all of you on this session once again how valued your voices are and how much a part of our school we hope that you and other international students will be. It is, our international students make up a huge portion of our population, so I just wanted to let you know that in advance. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the topic that I've been asked to speak about. And I'm going to speak generally. So I'm taking off my University of Pennsylvania hat at the moment, and I'm just going to speak generally, but I will share some specifics with you. But once again, to start, I am Leslie Levin. I am the Assistant Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid at the Graduate School of Education at the University of Pennsylvania. And I'm so pleased to speak with you today about how to apply to graduate school and share with you some tips and thoughts as you explore and navigate these steps. So I'm going to really divide this presentation into three main topics. The first is doing your research. So before you can even think of the application process, I'm going to talk to you about the types of questions that I hope that you're asking yourself so that you can be doing a thorough job of researching. Next, I want to talk about planning ahead and preparing for the application process. And then finally, the last part today, we'll talk about the process itself. I am going to, at the end, ask for any questions that you have, but I certainly welcome along the way if you would like to put questions in the chat box. I can go back at the end of the session and try to answer those. So let's start with doing your research. And let me talk to you about a couple of points that I really want to highlight. The first is when we say that, do your research. Really the first point that I want to emphasize is identifying the program and your degree of interest. And we're going to go into each of these 4 bullet points in more detail. So that would be step number 1. The next step is location. And looking and thinking about what is important to you, what is realistic. So we'll talk about that. The next is the actual type of institution. And we in the United States have a classification, a formal classification called the Carnegie Classification that I'm going to share with you and explain to you what that means and why it's important. Finally, I think that as a prospective graduate student, an area that you really want to research is financial assistance and asking good questions. So we're going to go into each 4 of these bullets right now in more detail. So first, identifying the program and your degree type. So I first put the obvious out there, which is what field do you want to pursue? And that question hopefully may be a little bit easier, but taking that question to sort of the field of study and then narrowing it down to program can be a little bit more challenging at times. And so what I would say is it's best to start broadly. Are you somebody who is interested and know that you're interested in education? Well, great. But education is broad in and of itself. You could be interested in teaching, but perhaps you're interested in more the linguistics side of education. Perhaps you are more interested in international education and looking at how we develop educational systems, or maybe counseling or mental health. So the field is important, and then sort of narrowing it down to which program. And do keep in mind that when you're exploring graduate programs throughout both the US and the world, that program names might vary slightly. So it's important to really dig into the content of the program and not judge a program and assume it to be something, because again, program names can vary slightly. The second question that you need to figure out is, what type of degree are you looking for? And I know you have great advisors at the EducationUSA Center that likely talk you through this. But let me just stay here for a moment and talk about a master's versus the doctoral degree, and which one might be appropriate to consider. So a master's degree in the US is generally a degree that is professionally focused and with the idea and the intent to train you for your career. It is generally a shorter term program, 1 to 2 years in length. And so when we say that there's a more immediate return on investment, the idea here is that because it's a short study program of 1 to 2 years, you are able to enter the workforce much more quickly than a doctoral degree. And as I write here in the last bullet, this is a great option for most students who are interested in furthering their career, entering into their career, and often this is the terminal degree for them. That, though, can be contrasted against the doctoral degree. And a doctoral degree is really designed for somebody who is interested in research and having a career that really focuses around research. So most students pursuing a doctoral degree are looking to stay within academia. Not all. Some students do end up going on to work perhaps, for outside organizations. But again, the idea and the really sort of critical word here is research. It's a much larger time commitment. We're talking usually at minimum 4 years, although that's really a very speedy time frame. In general, I would say more 5 to 6 or even 5 to 7 years of a time commitment. Often, though not always, students who are pursuing a doctoral degree have already completed their master's degree, but again, that may not always be the case. And one of the hallmarks of a doctoral degree is your dissertation, which of course is original research in a highly specified subject area where you're really going in depth and exploring a particular thesis or question. So that is the sort of foundational differences. I will just take a moment to say that within the field of education, we have 2 different types of doctoral degrees. We have the PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, and then we have what we call in an acronym, an EDD, a Doctor of Education. So what are the differences between those? Well, the PhD is very much in line with what I've described in the bullets that you see here. Again, for somebody who wants to go in and really have a career in research. The EDD degree, which is the Doctor of Education degree, is designed for a higher level leader or somebody who either is already in or aspires to have a leadership role, generally within a university setting, and so is using the EDD degree, yes, to create original research, but research that's very pragmatic in nature and tied to their job or the profession. So an EDD is often for people who are not wanting to have a career in research. They want to have done some research, but they're using that degree to become and or maintain or move further into a leadership role, generally within a university setting. So that was the first bullet of doing your research, is identifying your program and your degree type. The second is location. So, I write here, how far are you willing to go? Well, we hope the answer is you're willing to go anywhere for the right program. But let's be realistic. There may be personal constraints. So obviously when you're doing your research, you do want to think about what's realistic for you and for those members of your family. An important characteristic is also to think about, are you interested in a more urban or rural setting? The picture that you see here on the right side of my screen is an aerial shot showing our university, the University of Pennsylvania. You will see the football field, you will see the quadrangle, which is a very, very famous undergraduate quadrangle, which has been in existence since the 18th century. our university, as you can see, is right at the precipice of the city of Philadelphia, and you can see the skyscrapers in the background. We are very much an urban setting, and really what I would say is it's hard to designate where our campus ends and the city begins. University of Pennsylvania is part of and is part of the larger community of Philadelphia. And I bring up the urban aspect because I do think that when you consider graduate schools, you do want to think about where you're comfortable living, but there can be benefits, of course, to doing more of an urban education and some benefits to a rural. Certainly on the urban education side, the access to practical experience and being able to get experience in with either being very close to schools, being close to organizations, public organizations, if you're perhaps interested more in working for in the public sector, or consulting, you know, various aspects of an urban education can provide you that. And of course, benefits to being rural as well, if you're somebody that perhaps wants you know, a different vibe or feel. So these are just questions for you to have to explore. Next, I want to talk about the type of institution and why it's important to learn a little bit about this. So in the United States, as I mentioned, we classify institutions into different categories, and this is called the Carnegie Classification. And most broadly, universities are classified as doctoral universities, master's colleges and universities, and baccalaureate colleges. And within each of those categories, there are subcategories. So within doctoral universities, there are Research 1 institutions, there are Research 2 institutions. And essentially what these categories are they designate how many different and type of the highest level of degree and how much research is being done. So at the University of Pennsylvania, we are designated a Research 1 doctoral university. The Research 1 designates the highest level of research that can be done at a university. And to be classified as a doctoral university, an institution has to award at least 20 different doctoral or research degrees and at least 30 professional practice doctoral degrees. That would include the Juris Doctor, the JD or law degree, an MD, medical degree, for example. So that's a doctoral university. A master's college or university offers fewer, less than those 20 doctoral degrees, but offers a number of master's degrees. And then finally, the baccalaureate colleges are essentially those that are primarily focused on offering undergraduate degrees. Now, why is this important and why am I bringing this up? Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is because at the graduate level, I do think it's important, particularly in the field of education, to be thinking of a doctoral university and that highest level university. And here's the reason why. When you're studying a field like education, which is so interdisciplinary, education touches on aspects of law. You know, we talk about students' rights and rights to their records. Well, there's that touches on legal aspects. When you study education, you might be involved more on the counseling side, which can touch on even social work. When you study education, you may be focused perhaps on international education, which of course can touch on topics such as economics or political science or international affairs. When you are at a Research 1 doctoral level university, that means that there are graduate degree programs in those other fields that may be of interest to you to take a course in. It is critical at the graduate level that you are honing in on your particular field or skill set. So again, going back to the example of a student interested in international education, you might be somebody who is, really delving into this degree, but want to take a class in international economics. Well, that's not necessarily offered at the Graduate School of Education. But if you're at a doctoral institution like Penn or a Research One institution, there is a graduate degree and graduate level courses in economics in a different college at the University of Pennsylvania. We call the colleges are sort of the large headers for different subject areas. We have 12 graduate and professional schools at Penn. So international economics may not be offered within the Graduate School of Education, but a different one of our graduate schools. So again, at the graduate level, I will personally recommend, though obviously this is just one person's recommendation, that there is more opportunity when you are looking at a broader university. And it allows you to expand your horizons and not just be thinking about taking coursework in your home school, but also at other graduate schools at the university. The other reason why, thinking about a doctoral university may be really beneficial is because of dual degrees. So we at Penn's Graduate School offer a number of dual degrees where you are not just earning your master's in education, but you can do a dual degree between the law school at Penn. So you can get a JD and an MSED, or you can apply and get an MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and a master's degree at the Graduate School of Education. So that's why I wanted to talk about considering the type of institution so that you're thinking beyond just the scope of education, but again, more broadly as to how that, how your interest might be fulfilled and expanded by having other graduate school opportunities and coursework available from a doctoral university. Finally, when we're talking about doing your research, I want to just talk a moment about really exploring financial assistance opportunities and really digging into this topic. We know that graduate school is an investment, and the University of Pennsylvania's Grad School of Education is no exception to that. It is an investment. It is costly. We are a private school, and so it certainly is an investment. But we can tell you with confidence that it's important to keep in mind that the investment that you're making in your future, particularly at a school such as ours, really can offer a lifetime of payout and payoff. That being said, you need to be able to figure out a way to go and pay for it. So it is important to ask schools and do the research as to what type of scholarships and awards are offered. So what questions or topics would I say for you to dig deeper and probe? First is, what types of awards are offered to PhD versus master's students? One thing that you'll find in the United States is that not always, but frequently, PhD students are what we call funded and often fully funded. That means that they are given their tuition is remitted. They have full tuition remission. They're often given an annual stipend and then asked to complete an assistantship, which is essentially working one-on-one, an apprenticeship, if you will, with a faculty member, either doing research or teaching. So that's the case at Penn Gse. All of our PhD students are fully funded, guaranteed for 4 years. But what about master's students? Well, we do not give full funding to our master's students, but we do give scholarships, and we do give merit-based scholarships. And one question, again, that I would encourage you to ask is, when you're looking at various programs, in particular master's programs, is do you give these merit scholarships to both international and domestic students? At Penn Gse, we do. It does not come into play. There is no weight given to whether you are a domestic or international student. All of our master's students are automatically considered for merit-based scholarships when reviewed for admission. And so that happens at the same time that you're evaluated, and you would be notified of any merit-based scholarship at the time that you are notified for admission. One thing that I will just let you know is we also at the Graduate School of Education do give some need-based awards. Now, unfortunately, those need-based awards are narrowed, and we do only award those to US citizens or permanent residents. But in case anybody here has a dual citizenship, I just wanted to make sure to note that. I want to let you know now some specifics about Penn Gse, if I can, for a second, and let you know that when I say that our master's students are given all considered for scholarships, I want to let you know that 70% of our master's students, and generally it really can range anywhere from 70 to 75%, of those students admitted to Penn Gse are given a merit-based scholarship. So we are, definitely understand the challenges. And while, yes, we know it's an investment, we also know that one has to still be able to live and afford this. So we try to stretch as much as we can to give students these scholarships. The other thing that I will let you know is that our master's students are also eligible for what we call graduate assistantships. And these graduate assistantships for master's students are essentially student jobs. When you apply, you will, if you are full-time, you have to be a full-time student to get a graduate assistantship. You will be notified if you're being considered for a graduate assistantship, and if awarded, a graduate assistantship, it is an hourly position, and you get paid, with the idea being that that also helps to offset the cost. So again, I want you, when you're doing your research, to explore deeply and make sure that you're asking these relevant questions about financial assistance. So let me move on. We've talked about research now. The second step of your process in how to apply to graduate school is step 2 is now planning ahead and preparation. So what do we mean by this? Well, once you've identified your programs that you are interested in applying to, these next steps, as I said, are to plan and prepare. And what is involved? Well, first is checking which standardized tests are required for the programs, and then being sure to register for those exams. Generally, I would say that you can plan that you'll need to take an English proficiency test like the Toefl or IELTS exam, and likely but not always you may need to take the graduate record examination or the GRE. Those I would say are the very most common required standardized tests. And so when I say, again, planning ahead, I want you to keep in mind that when you have identified the programs, that you'll want to sort of work backwards from the application deadline of your programs, because it does take the universities about 4 weeks to receive your official test scores. So it really does involve you stepping back and really doing a time frame, because you cannot plan that if your deadline is, let's say, February 1st, that if you take the exam January 15th, that you'll have met your requirements and your test scores will be in by that point. So again, this is where that timing comes in. And paying attention to details becomes very important in the second bullet, which is gathering application materials. And what I mean by that is not just gathering, but making sure that you're talking to the right people who need to be a part of this process. So remember that you will, for most programs, need to get recommendation letters or references on your behalf. Make sure to give those writers plenty of time. We certainly just don't want to have you be asking someone and say, I need it in a day or two. So again, ask them plenty of time in advance. And the second, with the gathering application materials, another important material that can take some time is a transcript evaluation. For most institutions, and again, here can only really speak though for Penn Gse, we do require a transcript evaluation. And we require that this come from an agency, it come from something called a NACES accredited agency. And it takes time. It can take 8 to 12 weeks for you, by the time that your materials get sent to this agency, for the agency to deliver the evaluation to us. So again, that's why it is so important to be thinking ahead. And the last, in terms of preparation, that I would so strongly encourage you to do is to attend an admissions event. Most likely it's going to be virtually nowadays, but I so strongly encourage you to do this. Not only does this give you a greater sense of the school and the people at the school, but it's also an opportunity for you to really interact, often one-on-one, with a representative, and for them to potentially get to know you prior to you ever getting your application in. And so you would love to be, you know, at an event and you know, be able to have that conversation, whether it be through chat, whether it be you know, actually speaking, so that you know, a faculty member, a staff member says, oh yes, I remember speaking to this student at that webinar or at that session. So really, I do strongly encourage you to do this. Finally, that takes us to the application process itself. So now you've done your pre-work and you're at the point of actually applying. What I've listed for you are what are often, as I write here, common requirements for the application. This is not necessarily 100% comprehensive because it can vary, and certainly varies you know, by program, and if you're applying to education versus, you know, a law school or an MBA, that can vary. But I would say that these are common requirements, and they are the requirements of what we at Penn Gse would ask for. So first, we're going to require the transcripts, or in the case of you students, if you've completed your degree if you've completed it outside of the US, which I'm assuming most of you have, we would need that transcript evaluation. We do require some standardized tests, although this depends on which of our graduate degrees you're applying for. Not every one of our master's degrees requires a GRE. So you actually need to look and explore which master's you're wanting to see if it requires the GRE. We require letters of recommendation. Again, some schools, you know, vary in the number. Some of our programs require 3. I would say most require 3, but we have a couple that only, you know, are fine with 2. We want to see a resume, a statement of purpose, and then finally, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to need an English proficiency exam. either the TOEFL or IELTS exam. And as I mentioned in the earlier slide, I'm just going to take one more moment to emphasize that transcript evaluation. We require, for our international students who've done their schooling outside of the US, we require that at the time of submission. And so again, it needs to be, figured into your planning to work backwards to make sure you have enough time to get that documentation. So last but not least, I want to take some time, and then I will open it up to questions, to give you some tips. From somebody who has been in the admissions field for a number of years. And again, I think these are universal tips, not just tips for our school, but good tips when you're applying to any graduate school. The first is, I don't care what the deadline says. Always apply early. I know that seems intuitive, but I will tell you, human nature is such that we take our time and often just cannot get to that finish line until right before the timer is running out. And I implore you, whatever the application deadline says, do 2 weeks earlier. There are unforeseen problems that can happen. And so if I leave you with anything today, it's going to be this screen. And each of these is really important. So apply early. And we have an expression that says the early bird can often get the worm. And I'm going to tell you that when you have programs where you see rolling admissions, it is absolutely the case that early applications can often, not always, but maybe at an advantage because you've got everything in earlier and we have a full space available. If you get towards the end and space is not available anymore, well, that's unfortunate. So that's bullet one. The next thing, taking time with your statement of purpose. I think it goes without saying, except that I'm going to say it, to say that you must proofread your essay. And then once you've proofread it, give it to 2 other people to proofread. It is amazing how much that we miss in just small grammatical errors, typos, whatever the case may be. So the statement of purpose is important, not just because we want it to be a well-written piece, but also because it is a qualitative part of your application that allows you to share what's important to you, to share your journey. And I will tell you, and this is specific to Penn Gse, we really take time reviewing those goals statement or the statement of purpose. When you are in a competitive admissions process, the statement of purpose really does become important. And so I want you to just, again, take time with it. And that goes back to applying early, because the statement of purpose can take a lot of revisions and take a lot of time to do. Third, confirm that your application is complete. We all live in a very automated world where information is sent out and you can log in and see what's missing, see what's not missing. The point here is that the onus is on the student. The responsibility is of the students to make sure that all of the required application materials have been received. So what I would encourage you to do is just make sure, don't assume anything, check with the admissions office, shoot an email. Do you have everything? I just want to make sure my application is complete. We at Penn Gse will actually proactively send you an email when your application is complete. but not all institutions will do that. So I want to make sure that you realize that you should check. Make sure that the institution has everything that you think that you sent, just for your own peace of mind. And finally, again, the idea here, keep these helpful hints. This is the most important part of the presentation, is the check and read your email. Whatever email address that you put into your application is how the admissions office is going to communicate with you. And the expectation is that you read your email. We relay very critical information to our students via email. And the sort of excuse that I didn't see it is not going to, it's not going to be permissible. It is so important that you check your email, that you read everything, and that because there are oftentimes important updates. For example, there have been times where we have extended the application deadline for certain programs, or we've even opened up a program and to receive applications later than normal. This would be information we would communicate via email. And so it is important, again, that you read it, that you check it, that you stay on top of these messages. So at this point, I will conclude the formal part of my presentation, but I would be thrilled to just entertain any questions. And I'm going to stop sharing at this point just so that I can see if there are any questions in the chat. But again, happy to take any questions in person or via chat.
There are many questions in the chat.
Okay, great.
They're very excited.
Okay. So I'm first looking for Maria at a question about the EDD degree. And so Maria asks, our programs focused on, are there some specific science areas, such as physics, chemistry, biology, astronomy? So the EDD is, again, specifically a Doctor of Education degree. And we at Penn Gse, so it is only a degree that is offered at graduate schools of education. So you will not find an EDD degree offered, for example, in chemistry, not offered. What you will find is that there's an EDD degree, which is offered in fields of education. So for example, in teaching and teacher leadership is an EDD degree that we offer. We have an EDD in educational leadership. We have an EDD in educational linguistics. So applied education. Now, if you are interested in physics or chemistry or biology and interested in that pure field, you would want to look at a PhD in that area. If you're interested though in sort of teaching physics, chemistry, biology, and you're interested more in not so much going sort of in depth into the field of biology, but you're interested more in learning about teaching styles, teacher education, that we an EDD in teaching, learning, and teacher education. So it's more, again, what I would say is a field about the theory of how we teach, how we learn, and it's not so much applied to whether it's physics, chemistry, or biology, but more just about theory of how we teach and learn. So I'm hoping that answers Maria's question. If not, I will expand further.
Leslie, I think I know why Maria asked this question.
Yes.
Because we have someone in the program that she is applying for a PhD, and one of her fields is studying the methods of teaching geography, for example, and she has a research already in the master's level, and she would like to go further. I think that's why so it's like a applied education. I don't know if that's the wording. Applied education for the teaching of geography, for example.
So this
Exactly.
is where, so what I would say is this is where either an EDD or PhD could work when you're talking about methodology, and where your dissertation would actually then, so the dissertation or the thesis that you're building would be to explore and go into detail about that subject area. So for example, we have people on our faculty who are interested in looking at how we best teach math education or STEM related fields. And where that specificity comes in is by doing your dissertation in that particular area and asking a question in line with that, because then what you do is work with a particular faculty member or faculty members who can give you and guide you in your help asking that question. I just wanted to point out that the degree name itself is more a broader degree name in teaching, learning, and teacher education. But you would get into that level of specificity within the dissertation work.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I'm going to just move down here. The next question is about combining merit-based scholarships with external funding. And the answer is you can absolutely combine merit-based and external funding, as long as it doesn't supersede the cost of tuition. So if let's say the tuition for a master's program is, the tuition is $60,000, and you have a scholarship that awards you $40,000, and then you get a $10,000 award from GSE, absolutely no problem. It's just that you wouldn't be able to get above the cost of tuition. And again, stop me if have any other questions as I'm answering these, if you want me to go into more specificity. So I'm going to answer a question about from a student who has a master's in urban studies and interested in a PhD at our Weitzman School at University of Pennsylvania. So the question is about, in order to apply, that you would need to get a fully funded financial assistance. So let me first start by saying for the Weitzman School, that is a different one of, I mentioned that at Penn we have 12 different graduate schools. So the Weitzman School of Design is one of those 12. And I don't want to answer specifically on behalf. It is I presume, I do believe that if you are accepted to the PhD program in city and regional planning, that comes with, that offer of admission would actually come with a funded package for your PhD program, but I am not 100% sure. So I do not want to speak out of turn here, but what I can do is, after I go through, I can give you the name, or actually Diane, as you are on the call, would you mind looking up our admissions colleague at Weitzman, so we can give the contact for the admissions director at Weitzman, just so that Andre can reach out directly?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. So I'm now asking from Anna Carolina, and she's pursuing her master's degree. So, and you are interested in doing, wants to do research. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read this at the same time. So if you are completing, Anna, your master's degree at this, and you're in the process, and you're interested in research, if you complete your master's degree, then I think a logical next step would be to explore a doctoral program. And what we recommend that students do is actually, we put all of our faculty on our website, and we would ask that you explore the areas of research that our faculty are working on. And then you are absolutely welcome to reach out directly to a faculty member and, you know, ask them questions. Ask if they are accepting students for the new year, because, you know, our doctoral programs, our PhD program is small. You know, we generally take in about 20 new students each year, and it's not as if every single faculty member can, you know, accept a new student each year. So it is important for you to reach out. So I would certainly encourage you to do it. I'm scrolling down now to Brett. I just want to try to get through these, and I'm cognizant of time. And Brett, your question is about reducing, or asking about if we are reducing PhD students because of COVID. So I want to tell you that, and this is a wonderful question, because some of my colleagues at other graduate schools of education are doing things a little different. We will still be taking and accepting applications for our fall 2021 PhD cohort. We expect to bring in roughly the same number. So we will not see any significant reduction of admission to our PhD students for the fall 2021. And yes, as I said, I would certainly encourage you to reach out directly to faculty members. There's a question here about transcriptions. And I
just replied,
okay.
Guys, if anyone doesn't know, transcript is histórico.
Okay.
The word in Portuguese. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question that I see here, oh my goodness, hopefully I can get through these, is if part of a program at Penn can be done abroad. So at the Graduate School of Education, and at most of our graduate programs, it is a shorter time frame. And so we do not have what we call kind of study abroad programs the way at the undergraduate you do, because undergraduate is 4 years. And so there is certainly time to take 6 months and go abroad. However, we do have experiences that students can take where students can do, and many of our programs actually have a required practical component or internship that's required, where most of our students do go internationally. So for example, our International Education Development Program requires the majority of our students do an international internship between their first and second years, and work with advisors so that they can be placed with an agency abroad and do work as part of their program. So it is a possibility. And let's see. So for someone's asking scholarships to apply for our master's in linguistics. So any of our master's programs, and at Penn Gse, we have 21 different educational programs in educational master's programs. So, and they range, as I said, from teaching programs to educational linguistic programs to more psychology and human development. We even have a program in medical education for physicians and healthcare practitioners. All of our master's programs, students are automatically considered for merit-based scholarships, every one of them. And let's see. So again, I think the question about scholarships. Scholarships again, all of our master's programs, students will be considered for these awards. And I'm thinking that I may have gotten through everything. There were some comments, so that's good, because I wanted to make sure that I'm conscious of time, because I know it now is 2 o'clock. And Diane, oh great, you were able to get, thank you, the regional, for the student interested in the PhD in regional planning. That's great. Anything else though before we part that I can answer for you?
Leslie, I have a question.
Yes.
What's the GSE's position regarding the TOEFL exam? Are you accepting the at-home edition for TOEFL GRE? Do you accept Duolingo? How is it at the moment?
We do not accept Duolingo. We are accepting the TOEFL ITP exam, which is a slightly different version of TOEFL, but we are accepting it in lieu of the regular internet-based exam right now. Though TOEFL is offering, you are able to take it at home now, so it is back and readily available. So hopefully that shouldn't be an issue any longer.
Okay, because we heard a few graduate programs weren't accepting, and I'm doing this research actively for the program. So
yes, so we are allowing for the ITP, the TOEFL ITP, which is something we hadn't previously. Let's see, so just really quickly, there's a question about PhD programs in user experience design, human-centered design. We have, I'm just not 100% sure that this is what you're looking for. We have programs within the Graduate School of Education in learning sciences and technology. So utilizing technology, and design within the educational context. And so I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're looking for. I would say that for students applying to the PhD program, and this is a general comment, not just for Penn Graduate School of Education, most students applying to a PhD program have had some research. It doesn't necessarily mean it's extensive. It could be that it is for your thesis, for your master's degree or your bachelor's, but you've had some research experience to know that you like research, because that's of course the basis of the degree. I would say that the amount of research can vary, but that most students have at least some basis of research. And then as for the band for IELTS, we definitely, I would say, we want to see probably, we do look at it case by case, but competitive applicants are going to be at a 7.5 or above. Sure. And then I think I probably have time for 2 more of these questions. So I'm going to take a question from Brett about admission statistics. So Brett, it really varies whether we're talking about master's or PhD. I will tell you that our PhD programs are very, very competitive. And as I told you, we typically have about 20 spots each entry term. We get about 500 to 600 applications, so it's tough. And I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I also don't want to discourage students. But I want to be realistic with you and letting you know the numbers, so that you can also sort of temper expectations. So we get about, like I said, 500 to 600 applications, and we generally admit maybe 25 of those students. So it is very competitive. For the master's program, it's still competitive. The competition varies though, because there are 21 different programs, so it can vary by program. We received about 1,600 applications this year, and we're enrolling 700 new master's students.
Diane, Leslie, sorry, I have a question here
Yes.
about the statement of purpose, and I know we have limited time, and I'm just gonna tell them in Portuguese.
That's totally fine.
Pessoal, dúvidas sobre statement of purpose, CV, na nossa página do YouTube, EducationUSA Brasil, vocês têm vários vídeos de sessões passadas sobre formato, dicas. Semana que vem nós temos uma sessão aberta sobre Statement of Purpose, que já está anunciada nas nossas redes sociais. Fiquem à vontade para frequentar nossos plantões, fazer essas perguntas e perguntas específicas sobre tamanho, formato de cada Statement of Purpose vai estar sempre descrita nos sites das universidades. Tá bom? Eu estou fazendo isso porque a Leslie está com tempo limitado e aí eu acho que já fica e abre para todo mundo saber. Because we have other events that can talk about that, and we have the library at the YouTube channel, so we save a little bit of time regarding the statement of purpose or questions about that.
Absolutely. I do want to just finish by saying I put my email address just now in the group chat. Diane, if you want to put yours in as well, I have one of my colleagues, Diane Huang, is on this email chat, this webinar with us as well. Diane, if you don't mind, while I'm just finishing up, would you mind just putting in our admissions email address as well, just so that everybody can have that available? So we really want to thank you so much for coming and giving us this opportunity, and really for being such an engaged group. I'm really so pleased with how many students came and your wonderful questions, thoughtful questions. It's obviously a very experienced group of students here. So thank you for listening so intently. And we'd be happy to follow up with any of you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I know Diane is going to put in our general admissions address. And finally, the other thing that I do want to encourage you to do, as I mentioned in this webinar, but please check out our website for our events. We host a number, and all of them will be online for the fall. So we will have a number of different events. We're going to have the opportunity to drop in every Friday afternoon. Well, actually, we're going to rotate times to speak with one of us. If you have further questions, that's available. We'll have an open house. We will have other sessions as well. So again, please stay in touch, be in touch, and do very much appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Leslie. That was a wonderful presentation, very clear. Thank you very much. Muito obrigada a todos que estiveram aqui. E we hope to work together soon. And all the best to everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And you have our information. And have a wonderful weekend. And we look forward again to continuing the relationship.
Sure. Thank you very much. Muito obrigada, pessoal. Até a próxima. Sexta que vem tem mais. Durante a semana tem vários eventos também, tá? Foi um prazer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.